If you like history, you've probably watched a bunch of TV shows and movies about history in your spare time. I know I do. In these shows, noble titles are always getting thrown around. People are always talking about Earl of this and Duke of that, Baron of this, and I was getting confused from all of this, so I decided to look up what these titles mean and make a video out of it. So here we go. European nobility was created in the years after the fall of the Roman Empire. After the Roman army would leave certain areas, gangs would come in and mess with people in that area. They would steal livestock and burn things down. You know, the usual pre-medieval gang activity. After doing this for a while, some gang leaders realized that if they kept killing and stealing from the peasants, they wouldn't be able to take things from the peasants because there would be nothing left to take. That realization led to gang leaders governing over territory and keeping other gangs out of that territory. They wanted to be peaceful with other gang leaders, so they would marry off their children to the children of warlords and other gang leaders. They would also recognize their authority to rule territory. After a few generations, these gang leaders started to believe that it was their right to rule this territory because they were special in some way. Thus, the nobility system of Europe was born. Well, at least the nobility system in parts of Europe. So now let's go over the different titles of nobility, starting with the most powerful, King/Queen. Kings and queens are the highest on the nobility ladder, to the point where they aren't even considered nobility by most people. While nobles usually rule a region or town, kings rule pretty much everything that isn't controlled by another king. Kings usually control the military too. Also, while nobles would receive their right to rule through tradition, power, or money, kings believe that they received their power to rule from God. Now let's move to the next title, Prince and Princess. When I say prince, you probably think of the son of a king. You'd think that they are next in line to the throne, and that they are the second most powerful person in the kingdom. But that's not always the case. In France, a duke would outrank a prince. In Austria and Russia, the title Archduke was used instead of prince. In addition to that, sometimes in history, there would be principalities instead of kingdoms, and a prince would actually be the monarch of that place. A good example of this is Wallachia, where Vlad the Impaler was prince. Let's move to the next title, Duke and Duchess. Dukes rule places called duchies or dukedoms, and they're the highest nobility that isn't considered royalty. Many times in history, dukes have ruled countries similar to how a prince would rule a principality. For example, Cosimo I of the Medici family was made Grand Duke of Tuscany by the Pope. Usually, however, they would rule large estates of land within a country and are controlled by a king. The next highest title is Marquis or Marchioness. Now, you may not have heard of this one before because it's not as commonly used as Duke or Earl in TV shows and movies, but Marquises have a very important job. They are put in charge of border counties. If foreign invaders start to cross the border, it was the responsibility of the Marquis to try to stop them and give word to the king. After that comes Earl or Countess. Earls, which are also known as counts, ruled a similar amount of land as Marquises, but they didn't control borderlands, so they weren't seen as important as Marquises. An interesting thing about counts is that counties still exist to this day. Unfortunately, they are no longer ruled by counts. Then we have Viscount and Viscountess. Viscounts were originally people who worked as administrators or judges for counts. After a while, Viscount became an official title and they were given land. The final title is Baron and Baroness. Barons are the lowest of the nobility, and they were also the simplest. They don't have any responsibilities like Duke or Marquis. They were just people who the king said should rule a piece of land. Also, they were usually called Lord or Lady instead of Baron or Baroness. People who weren't currently holding a position of nobility, like the son of a duke or a daughter of a marquis, were also called Lord or Lady. I also wanted to talk about knights for a bit. See, knights were not considered royalty or nobility. A knighthood is a title of honor, not a title of aristocracy. Knights, however, did sometimes rule small plots of land called fiefs. I hope you enjoyed learning about noble titles. I wanted to note before the video ends that there are many other noble titles specific to a country or region in Europe, and of course on the rest of the world, that I didn't mention in this video. With that said, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day.